Hello, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday with 3W. Wellness Wednesday is sponsored by 3W Medical for Women, a nonprofit medical clinic offering free of charge or low-cost women's health services in the Seattle area, regardless of income or insurance status. 3W does not profit off of the health choices women make. The information shared in this podcast is the opinion of the speaker or speakers. Medical information is not intended as individual medical consultation, but for general education only. Always talk to or consult your own health professional for personalized advice regarding medical decisions. And if you're in the Seattle area, consider making an appointment to consult with us. I'm Helen Nguyen, CEO of WAMS/3W Medical for Women, and the host of today's podcast. Hi there, Wellness Wednesday listeners. I am back in the studio, and I am so thrilled to welcome Faith Franz. Did I say that right?
Yes, correct.
Faith Franz. She is an expert in art therapy, and if you hear art therapy, you're thinking of like painting or sculpting and that type of therapy, but it's not. So we'll have her tell you more about that in a little bit, because that's exactly what I told when I mentioned it to my husband. He's like, "You're gonna do painting?" And I was like, "No, Steve, that's not. Come on now, get with the program." And then we have Ginger, who has experienced art therapy. That's actually how we got connected with Faith. And I'm just really curious about her experience and what she got out of it. What was it life-changing? How many sessions? All of that stuff. And so she's going to give a much more personal testimonial about art therapy and how it has affected her life. So we're constantly looking at new concepts that are coming out. You know, we here at WAMS and 3W take into consideration a holistic approach to your healthcare. When you come here, it's yes, you're coming with a physical issue, but we take into consideration your emotional, spiritual, and mental health, hiccups or issues that you might be facing that we could maybe introduce a different resource to you that you haven't heard about. So anyways, this podcast is all about art therapy, and art therapy stands for Accelerated Resolution Therapy, not your typical painting, sculpting kind of art therapy kind of thing. So Faith, can you please dive into what accelerated resolution therapy is? What is it? But actually, let's back up really quick. Who are you? Where are you? Where are you located in your office? Sure. Do you do telehealth? That's a big question probably for a lot of our patients.
Okay.
And how did you get into this?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're correct. My name is Faith Franz, and I have a private practice in Oak Harbor, Washington, on Whidbey Island.
Okay.
I do telehealth. I am licensed in Washington as well as several Midwestern states and Colorado. Okay. And it's all on my website, which is islandsoundcounseling.com. So I love it when we can come into the office and do art, but it's not always practical. I've done it successfully using telehealth as well. So there's definitely options out there. What is art? You're right. I am terrible with like painting and drawing, so I guarantee you that will not be a part of it. It involves eye movements and it's scripted. Okay. So what happens is when your eyes are moving back and forth in a certain way, in a certain, kind of sort of speed, and we're trained as therapists on how to do that, it keeps the prefrontal cortex of your brain, the front part of your brain, which is the logic part, busy. Okay. And so you're not having to figure it all out and come to conclusions. It's kind of like, oh, okay, I'm busy with my eyes. While you're busy with your eyes, I'm reading a script, and we have over a dozen scripts for many different mental health challenges and just life challenges in general. And so I'm reading the script, and people are letting their brain just show them what it is that it's hurting, it's stuck on, and we do checks on, what it is you're seeing, what your brain is showing you, as well as how your body's feeling, because we know that there's a mind-body connection as well. Okay. And so it's from that we kind of just go on a little journey. Okay. And so it's like, oh, okay, I'm anxious about this. And as we go on, it's like, well, actually it's connected to childhood because my brain's showing me that. Okay, let's go down that path. And through that sort of process, by the end of a session, most of my clients feel like a relief. Okay, my brain was able to show me what I'm stuck on, why I've been in this pain. And maybe it's connected to something I didn't even really connect it with. But instead of always with the front of my brain trying to figure it out, I was able to get to more the subconscious brain, what we call the emotion brain in the art world. And that showed me something totally different, or it showed me a little bit deeper level that I didn't know was so connected. And so people are in control the whole time that we're doing the session. I'm not in control of their thoughts or brain. I'm just a guide kind of saying, let your brain show you, okay? Like, what is your body feeling at this moment? And we're just kind of talking it through. And so part of it is processing out some of the negative images and body sensations, and clients are letting their brain kind of show them, and they're working with their brain as to the image replacement that they prefer.
Okay.
Which sounds very difficult, and people are like, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, your brain wants to do that.
Whoa.
It's so great now that we're knowing more about brain science. It's like your brain wants to heal.
Wow.
So I'm older, so I think of it as like a record player, and the needle's off on the edge, and you're like over and over and over again, and it's like, your brain wants that needle to be put back onto the good music, but it needs a little bit of like guidance. Opportunity. And that's why when we sleep too, there's eye movements and REM, and our brain's trying to process. And so with this, you're fully awake, but you're able to say, okay, what is it, brain, that you're kind of stuck on? Oh, you're stuck on that? Okay. Well, can I see it this way? Can I include this information? By doing that and having control over some of those memories, it's just a real game changer. So we say you keep the facts, and you keep the facts that this bad event happened or this pain is what it is, but you see the images differently. You see them the way that you choose to see them. And by seeing something differently, your body feels differently.
Okay.
And so I love art. I love having art done on myself as well. And I'm a master art practitioner, so I've gone as far as I can go other than being a trainer, and I'm very close to now finishing the program to be a trainer so I can train therapists on art. And even people who are just starting out, I'll say, hey, give me a free session. Like, I'll take as many art sessions as I can. And I had, really, really good childhood. I've had a lot of really good things happen in life, but just like all of us, just living life, there's something.
Right, yeah.
And I always say, too, that, in our homes, we create a space that we want to live in. Oh, that picture makes me happy. That rug is a good color. We live in spaces that we try and make happy and who we are. But then our thoughts and our brain are like, not that. There's something living over there that's saying, you're not worthy. And here are some reasons you're not worthy. And here are scenes from the past that prove that you're not worthy. And then there's shame. And then anger comes in the room. And so sometimes that room in our brain is just not a happy place. And we've gotten messages from all over that have said, this is why you're not good enough. This is why you should be sad. This is why you're stuck. This is why you won't succeed. And we think oftentimes that that's just where we need to live in our brain, that we can control, the walls of our living room or how pretty our bed is or the pillows. But in our brain, we're just stuck. And thank goodness now with the newer modalities like EMDR and ART and IFS, we are now able to say, hey, no, we can change that. You can change that. That our memories are not fixed. And if you think about that, you can even realize, oh, now I'm seeing that memory a little differently, because memories change over time anyway. So with art, we're just giving it a space and an opportunity for you to have some control over what that memory will be.
Okay.
But it's so exciting that you can keep the facts, because I do think we grow from knowing, hey, I went through this hard thing. I didn't have this good experience. But in my mind, when I think about it, instead of that negative image, I see that image that I put there. And it's just as real and authentic. And it's something that I'm hanging there to say, I'm okay now, And because of that, my body feels better too. And I'm not triggered all the time over these things that really don't need to be a trigger for me anymore.
And how long have you been doing art therapy?
So right before the pandemic, I was trained in EMDR.
Okay.
I was excited about that, and that's an older modality. There was a therapist that was doing EMDR that realized, I think I can take some parts of EMDR, and I think that there's other ways that this can be done. And instead of changing EMDR, she created A.R.T.
Okay.
So I was trained on EMDR, going to get experience in EMDR, and somebody that was going to supervise me in that said, you know what, just turn around and get some training at A.R.T. I think you'll like it. She said, I'm just doing A.R.T. now. And so I did that thinking, oh no, one more training. I just got done with this EMDR training. I was excited. Okay, I'll try A.R.T. Maybe, it's always good to have lots of tools in your toolbox.
Sure. Yeah.
But I will tell you, A.R.T. has been the tool that I go to whenever possible, because I just have seen it to be a little bit more of a more effective, more positive. I feel like after every session, it's not a ... to be continued. It's like, okay, something happened.
Wow. Okay.
And it may not be everything that needs to happen, but it's something. And I haven't felt that with any of the other modalities I've been trained on. And that's kept me really excited and energized about it. And, for some people, it is one and done session. For some people, it takes a few sessions. But in general, it's a shorter course of treatment. It has 70%. Well, from the research they've done on A.R.T., they say that it works for 70% of the population, which is still statistically significant. Some people are like, well, why not 90? And I'm like, I know, why not 90? Well, but it's considered very statistically significant. It is evidence-based treatment.
Okay.
And like I said, I think we put so much hope into, one session will do it all. And sometimes it does, honestly. Sometimes I'm shocked, like, okay, that's all they need. But other times it's a few sessions.
Yeah.
With military, when they've done some research on the military population, and I am in a military town, for those with post-traumatic stress, and we try and drop off the disorder because, that's what we're doing these days, and I totally understand that with post-traumatic stress. But when they get that diagnosis of it being a disorder, within 4 to 6 sessions of A.R.T., they found through the research that they no longer meet criteria for that disorder.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, that doesn't mean all is fine, all pain is gone.
Right.
But as far as if we're looking at that DSM diagnosis, we're saying, hey, there's been a shift. There's been a shift. And it's been 4 to 6 sessions on average, which is really significant with that population.
Sure.
And I tell you, another thing I like about A.R.T. is I don't need to hear, and I don't need them to share every detail of the pain. And for a therapist, when we hear a lot, we can get burned out too.
Yes, absolutely.
And also, some people don't seek therapy because they don't want to
divulge.
Right. They don't want to have to share every detail.
Yeah.
I have literally done some sessions, including with the military, where they say, you know what, I don't want to tell you details. And I will say, you know what, you don't need to. And I love that. It's like a gift.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes,
I can help because your brain is doing this. It's not me. I'm just the guy kind of letting your brain know where to go. But you're in charge. You don't have to share detail. I have done sessions where I haven't even known what we were talking about. And they'll contact me later and say, you know what, that changed my life.
Wow.
And I'm like, I'm getting chills. That's so exciting to me.
That is
because
really
before
exciting.
I was trained on modalities where it was working with the prefrontal cortex of trying to figure it out, trying to change all the negative thoughts. And to some extent, I'm not putting down other modalities because there's, for different people, different situations, different times in our life. And sometimes we can combine them all too. Yeah. But the magic and the power of A.R.T. I really haven't experienced before, personally or in my practice.
Yeah. So do you have to be a licensed therapist to be able to practice A.R.T.?
Yes, to be trained in A.R.T., you need to be licensed.
Okay.
And to do A.R.T., you just need 3 criteria, according to the creator of A.R.T., who is Lainey Rosenzweig. Lainey says you just need to be able to move your eyes comfortably. Okay. You need to be able to hold a thought. And you need to, you should want to feel better. Yeah. Right? If there's secondary gains of, I'll do this, but I really don't want to feel better, of course that impacts it. Yeah. But do you have to believe in it? No. I've had people say, I'm the biggest skeptic, this isn't going to work. And by then they're like, thank you. I think that worked. Yeah. So you don't have to believe in the treatment, but just wanting
to be open.
Open to change happening or growth or healing. Yes. Awesome. So, and I've had people with some vision problems, and I'll say, go talk to your eye doctor or your specialist. If there's some sort of medical reason that it'd be difficult to move your eyes or hold a thought, let's get some some okay from the medical profession. But even then, it's worked. And like, it doesn't always work the way we all anticipate it. I've had some people say that didn't work. And then they'll contact me a few weeks later and say, you know what, I've been sleeping really well since that art session, and I haven't changed anything else in my life. Like, well, it could be that, right?
Yeah.
But I do see a lot of success, and I see things happen that kind of shock me in a positive way, including art sessions that have been done on myself where, am I able to share that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. If you feel
I can go on.
Yeah.
I will just share a few. But I was at an art training, an advanced art training, and they were teaching us what to do for learning disabilities. And I have had a diagnosis of Erland syndrome since the early 90s.
What is that?
It appears to be dyslexia. I think a lot of
okay.
people get that diagnosis of dyslexia.
Okay.
I happen to be working in a school setting. I was on an IEP team. I was a child in special ed, and it was an Erland specialist there. And anyway, long story short, she passed around this like overlay, this colored paper that she could put over paper. And I was on that team, and I just put it over my paper, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Words do that? They can just sit on a page. They don't have to flip and fall off the page. So I had the Erland screener screen me right after that meeting. She's like, oh yeah, 100%. You have you have Erland. And so from the 90s, I carried around my little plastic overlays and put it over everything I read.
Oh, wow.
And so I just assumed, okay, this is my life. This is what I have, whatever. And it's not a big deal. It's just this little piece of plastic that helps me to see words. So I was at this advanced art training, and they were teaching us how to do this. And it was like the dyslexia script. Well, I don't have dyslexia, so I'm like, oh, whatever. So I told the person who's just a therapist like me that was sitting next to me, we had a 10-minute bathroom break. I said, hey, why don't you just try and use that script on me? I don't really have dyslexia, but it's good practice for you. We'll see what happens. So we only got 8 minutes into the script. We went back to the seat. My overlay was on my paper, and it was all blurry. All the words under my overlay were blurry. Usually they're clear. So I thought somebody spilled water or something during break. And then I pick up the overlay, and the words were on the page. And I've not had to use the overlay. That was years ago.
Whoa.
I was like, what? 8 minutes of this script? No, does that make sense? No. But
So fascinating.
and I've done that script, every person so far that I've done that script with, whether they have a diagnosis of dyslexia or some other reading type problem, it has worked. And I don't know. We don't know. Like, was there some trauma from my childhood, some bullying, I don't know. I don't know why that ended up like that. And I'm not sure how it got treated, but I know it worked. And so you see that sometimes, and you're like, wow, my brain just needed to get a little reset there. Yeah. So it works for so many conditions: ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, learning problems, depression, anxiety, trauma, eating disorder, body image, pain, stroke, obsessive compulsive disorder, phobias, fears. So I also do couples therapy and discernment counseling for couples, and I'll sit with a couple and I'll see one of them, sometimes both of them, we're going around and around and around about the same problem. And a lot of times it's their upbringing or a previous relationship. And I'll say, hey, do you mind if I do art with you? Even if we have to cancel a couples therapy session just so I can do art individually with you. Sure, I'll do it. And then we'll get back together with for couples therapy. And it's like I have a new couple sitting on my couch. I'm like, what?
Wow.
It's just so amazing because we're able to move on. Now we can do couples therapy because it's not my husband's in the room and my father.
Oh, wow.
Or my ex, or my two exes and my husband.
Wow. Wow.
It's glorious. And so I just feel like, why not give it a try?
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, there's all these other modalities out there now.
Yeah. You'd probably be the first person to recognize if it's working or not, right? Because you've seen
the person. I don't always know. Like I said, sometimes I'm doing a session with very little information, and I don't see them again. And that happened, just like maybe a month ago. And it was somebody had a fear, a very specific fear, and I thought, well, wonder if that worked, because you don't always know until they're back in their environment. And then the client contacted me and said, oh, yeah, I don't have that fear anymore at all. Matter of fact, now I'm doing this and this and this. Like, my life has changed. I thought, well, heck, how would I have known?
Wow. That's
Same thing with various fears or phobias, or even in a relationship. They'll say, well, let me get back to my relationship, see if I'm still triggered by this or that. And like I said, even though we see positive results usually after one session, maybe it takes a few more. Some things just, over time, but I've had clients that it's like a spa for your brain. They're like, hey, let's just do this every other week or once a month. There's always something, right?
Yeah.
And that's the way I feel.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And I had one of the earlier sessions I had with someone, once again, just recently trained. I kept having recurring nightmares of black horses. And so I thought, oh, this is something ominous, something dangerous is there. And I kept waking up. And so I went to an art therapist. And also within about 5 to 8 minutes, I said, wait a minute. My brain showed me those aren't bad horses. That means I'm homesick because there's horses in my hometown. I'm just homesick. I don't need this art session. I'm okay. My brain was just trying to say, go home. She said, well, let's go ahead. You paid for the session. So I went ahead and finished the session. Then I got a plane ticket that same day to go home. And ever since then, now when I think of going home, I think of those horses. Oh. So it can be like something in your brain that's like showing you, hey, but maybe you're seeing it in a different way than your brain's trying to show you. We just don't know.
Wow. Wow. Well, let's get Ginger's input on this.
Yes,
so Ginger, how did you find faith?
Oh yeah, right.
And art therapy, because I've never heard it until you told me about it.
We were talking about it.
Yeah. So how did you stumble upon this?
Well, Faith had actually contacted the agency that I work for, because Faith, if I'm sharing, also does home studies.
Oh.
So we were looking actually for, our agency was looking for a contract home study provider. And Faith had actually contacted us, I think out of the blue, somewhere along the way. And I was talking to a coworker. I'm like, man, we could find a contract home study provider, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, you know what? This Faith person reached out to me. And I'm like, give me your, send it to me. So I just reached out mainly about that.
Okay.
And then we actually realized that she had worked as a contract home study provider when you lived in Missouri, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
For the agency I was working for at the time in Oklahoma.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was kind of like, wait, you worked for, oh gosh, kind of that connection.
Yeah.
So anyway, we kind of stopped talking about the home study, but then I don't even know how we got on the conversation of art, to be honest. I mean, she was sharing that she's has her own practice. I'm like, ooh, tell me about that. I'm always like, ooh. Of course, our agency works with foster youth. And so the more and more we were talking about, I'm like, man, this could be very impactful for a lot of our families that are not only parenting, youth that have come out or that are in the foster system, foster care system, but also the parents.
Yes.
There's all of us, I feel like, do have some type of trauma. So anyway, we talked, and she's like, well, would you like to do a free session? I'm like, yes. Like, who wouldn't want that? So I was like, for sure, because I think you're needing hours or for your whatever it was. So we did a session. It's been maybe a couple of months ago, I'm guessing. And oh my goodness, it's totally. And I don't think I'm a one and done session, because I do want to actually do more with Faith down the road. But I do think from that one session, I'm good. Does that make sense? Like, you know what? Because now I know. Now I have the authority, so to say, or the freedom to bring up the images that we went through for my, I guess, call it script, for what I was working through. I can't remember how you had me decide which one. I think you just said, what do you want to work through, or what are some things? And I'm like, well, and I'm just going to have to ad lib, because I don't really remember the conversation that well, but I'm like, abandonment. I started looking back. I'm going through a certain situation right now in my life, and I'm like, gosh, what is going on? And why does this always seem to happen to me with men? And so I was able to kind of start looking back. I'm like, you know what? My dad abandoned me when I was 10. And it seems like since then, the men that I've had either, relationships with or even been married to, that I'm like, why are they abandoning me? What is going on? What am I doing wrong? Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of just anger. And then there was other things I started thinking, wait, not only abandonment, but some other personal things happen, in high school and with a family member, and just I had cancer, and so just I literally just started pinpointing all this stuff, and I'm like, gosh, you know what? I've kind of been through some things, right? And so I decided like I said, there's so many things you can pick from. I was kind of like, oh gosh, which one do I pick? And I thought, you know what? I think that's where I would say things started. That was my, I guess, introduction to, okay, that's where things kind of started going sideways for me in childhood, and didn't recognize it until we probably started talking. I'm like, you know what? I'm recognizing that's been a pattern in my life. So we started the session, and I don't know how much you want me to share about the session, or
however, whatever you feel comfortable sharing with our listeners.
But I have heard of EMDR just because I've worked with a lot of therapists as well, and Faith had explained it to me. I was like, well, don't I have to be in person? She's like, no, we can do it virtually. And I know she said it's better in person just because you get to see that person's body language. So I was excited that it could be done virtually, to be honest. Just like, oh, don't have to drive all the way to where she lives. I'm learning. Even though I'm new to the area, I'm like, ooh, I think that's a little far. So I was able to do it in the comfort of my own home. I literally just had my laptop, in my room, and just literally, and she has the light that actually goes on the computer. So you do track the lights on your computer screen, and she, of course, tells you how to do it, or doesn't tell you how to do it, but just follow it and track it. Yeah. And so we would bring up a memory or a thought, and she was like, okay, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? And I said, I remember Thanksgiving dinner, or Thanksgiving, I think it was 19, I don't remember the year, but I told her, I said, I can remember the fork sitting the plate, like when people are eating, and it was quiet. And I thought, gosh, what is going on? Why? Because I have 3 other siblings. My mom and dad were there, and I'm like, everybody just seems so blah and, kind of slumber, so to say. And after we finished eating, my dad literally grabbed his stuff and just left. Walked out the door. And I remember we were all, my siblings and I were on the patio, or on the porch. We lived in an apartment. And I'm watching him leave, and I'm like, I'm just so confused, right? Like, why is everybody crying? I'm sure he's just going somewhere and coming back. So anyway, after that, my mom then eventually explained to me that he had left us for another woman and her kids.
Oh my gosh.
And so I remember thinking, wow, you don't realize at the time how much it impacts you. But I thought, okay, well, I have to be strong for my mom, because she was pretty emotional. I think I was 10 then. So,
oh gosh.
Anyway, so what we did, though, when you bring up that memory, you really do, I remember you saying this, Faith, you're like, you're the director of your own movie. You get to direct how the scene now plays out. And I'm sure I'm going to word some things wrong, but what I took from it was, anytime that thought comes to my mind, or feeling abandoned, or just any of that anger, or just not feeling worthy, all of that. And the script that she used helped me create a new story, almost, to where even though it's not that it takes away it doesn't take it away, but now when it does come up, or I find myself thinking about it, I now have a new script. And so I have a couple that I go to, which I actually love mine so much, because it does make me feel so powerful and free. And so she was like, well, tell me what images you're seeing, because, you do kind of want to have something that's fun. And to me, it was more about being brave and being bold, just because there was also other things I started realizing that had really been hurtful in my life, and thought, man. So all of a sudden I didn't create, but there's the 10-year-old Ginger. There's the 15-year-old Ginger that experienced an assault in high school. Then there's the 15-year-old Ginger that had a family member, do some things that they shouldn't have done. And then there's the Ginger that got married and her husband became an alcoholic. And then there's the Ginger that went through breast cancer. So you have the bald Ginger. Wow. Then you have this Ginger right now that's going through a pretty challenging divorce. And so I literally had all these Gingers lined up, and then I pictured us on paddle boards, because I recently started going paddle boarding, and just paddle boarding, literally kind of in a line. And I know it sounds weird, but there was just something so powerful that all of the Gingers currently, with what I'm going through now, are literally rallying around me. Nope, this Ginger went through that. I feel like they're protecting this one that's going through this now. And so when I do have that vision or that thought or my unworthiness or whatever, I picture all the Gingers as nope, we're battling together. Wow. And then the second scene I have that is actually probably my more favorite one. I had read something years ago. I don't know if you know much about. I love elephants. I don't know.
Yes, I love elephants.
Have a pet
They're
elephant.
so smart.
They're so smart. They're so smart. But get this. This is what's so cool. So the women elephants. So when a female elephant is giving birth to her calf, the other females will surround her and kick up dirt to throw off the scent of the baby, of the calf being born, as to protect from predators, because they know predators smell the birth that they will. Yeah. And I thought, there is nothing, I feel like, in a way, more powerful than females surrounding another female, of course, giving birth, but to protect her. Yeah. So then I think about that with the other genders. I picture them surrounding me right now and literally kind of kicking up dirt around me like, no, we're protecting you because what you're going through is pretty hard stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So those are the two things that I really do pop in my head. And they make me feel so strong and powerful, to where it really is kind of taking back that power that you felt unworthy. So, because when you have something, at least for me, when that does happen to you and you don't recognize it until I'm older now, it's like, oh, wow, that's why I chose or made choices that weren't in my best interest, probably with men or relationships, because I didn't think I was worthy, and probably already thought, well, they're going to leave anyway. So maybe
subconsciously,
kind of like self-sabotage to a certain degree. Yeah. And then it's like all of a sudden you start just relating back, oh my gosh, this whole time that was always in me. Like, you know, when a girl, or especially I feel like girls, when we don't get that validation from our dad or that protection of, even as you're growing older, you know, going to your, you know, sweet 16 dance, or telling you, no, you're not going to date that boy, or just giving you like, no, you're beautiful, you're cherished, you're a treasure. And I think when we don't get that, not recognizing how important that is, right? Yeah. And so I think all my life I was probably looking for that dad, to be honest. Instead of a spouse, I was looking for the dad that was supposed to protect me and love me and tell me I'm worthy. Yes. So now I get to do that. I get to create that story differently now. So now I haven't really had a chance to get with Faith since that session, because I think you had gone on vacation and time just passes, right?
Yes,
but I was like, oh my gosh. And I've told a few other people about it, and they're like, oh my gosh, you know, picturing you on a paddle board with all these. I'm like, no, we all have our own paddle board.
And see, I didn't even know that, because when I'm doing the sessions, a lot of times the clients are seeing this entire beautiful world, and I'm just like, is it a good image? Sure. I mean, so I don't always get this. It's a gift that you just gave us in the audience. Oh my goodness, thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. And you can see it in people's faces.
Yes. I mean, it's kind of fun when you get to create. Because I thought, okay, because it was kind of that moment in the session. All right, we're going to create a new vision. And I'm like, in my head, I'm not a very creative person. I'm just not.
Well, and I wondered about that. Was that something you just felt like your brain went to?
I went to, because I had recently, when I moved out here, that was one of the things I was looking forward to, which sounds weird, going paddleboarding, because there's so many places close by. I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to do that. And then I remember my son saying, Mom, we have some paddle boards, you know, take one. And then he bought me, I bought an electric pump for it. So I'm like, no, I want to go on my own. I don't want any help. I want to be able to go wherever I need to go. Wow. Unload it from the car, pump it up, and get on the water. And just
water is very healing.
Yes. Oh, yes. And when you're on that, it sounds so funny, but I think about just so powerful, standing on a board, and you're kind of just, you know, pushing through the water. Yeah. And there's something magical about it. So that image popped to my head. But then I thought about the different gingers that had gone through a lot of trauma that I didn't realize was trauma. I think I just accepted it, like, that was
life, or
that wasn't too cool, but whatever. Yeah. And didn't deal with it. So each one of those gingers, each of that age of a ginger that had an issue, that's what she looked like. So your 10-year-old ginger looks 10. I mean, she's 10. Like, again, the cancer patient ginger, bald, looks like, you know. So it's like seeing all of them lined up, and I'm like, wow, we've been through a lot. Yes. So I'm going to get through this. Of course I am. Yes. But now I have a new image. I have a new thing to draw from. But the elephant one's probably one of my favorite. Different gingers on elephants. Those different gingers, you know, surrounding this one today. Wow. I'm like, nope, we're going to protect you, and you're going to be okay. So yeah, I love it. Yeah.
And you didn't feel at any point that it didn't take away from the actual memory or feeling that you were feeling? It just helped you in some ways cope?
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if it's coping, and I remember Faith saying this, it's not necessarily going to take it away, because really that's part of your memory, right? It's there. Right. But instead of it bringing up gloom and doom, or just like, geez, that was horrible, like, it gives me an opportunity to say, yeah, that was really bad, but you know what? I'm stronger because of it, and I am worthy. And so then then all of a sudden these gingers just right in my head, my vision, they just rise up, and it's like, you know what? I have been through a lot, and I can do this. And this is yeah, that was a bad memory, but now I'm going to make it a fun, more power-taking memory for me. So I don't know if it's coping so much, because of course I still think about it, but it doesn't have the same, what's the word? It doesn't have the same.
It's like doesn't take away or like.
It's not the negative. It was
replaced. It's not
positive.
negative. Instead, I almost look forward to being like, oh, when I think about that, I get to bring this up. And then when I think about my current situation, what I'm going through, I'm like, oh, I can draw on that too. So it's really using it with different parts of your life story, because everybody has things that have happened to us that were like, well, that was pretty traumatic.
Yeah.
Oh, then I do. I just I don't know if I'm explaining it well.
No, it's beautiful actually.
Yeah,
I mean, it reminds me of kind of like being a religious person, as I practice my faith, but being very intentional with having conversations.
Yes.
And I've heard through my mentors and coaches through the years of like, we grow up with people's voices influencing and shaping us, and then we play certain tapes when certain events happen, right?
Yes.
And I remember being very stressed out in my work sometimes. Our work gets stressful, or our lives get stressful. And then I would play this tape that I shouldn't have done that. I should have known better. Like all of that stuff. Like you play it, and then you play it in that voice of that person who doesn't say that anymore to you, because you're an adult now. They don't say that to you anymore.
But you've kept all the cassettes.
But you kept those tapes, and I play it when I drive home.
What is it? You're shoulding on yourself?
Yeah.
Like you're shoulding on yourself.
Yeah, and I play it, and it would make me feel horrible.
Yes.
See, with
myself.
art, you could put in a different tape.
Yeah.
And you could say, I know that those are those tapes are still accessible, but I choose to put in this other tape.
Yes.
And I think that's the word, choose. You now have a choice of where are you going to go with it. And
It's very empowering, even for people like, I love the grief, loss, bereavement type work too, because the fact is the fact. You lost a baby, you lost your spouse, and it's sad, and you will continue to have that loss. And so we're not saying it didn't happen, but we're saying now, and I had an art session and I lost my father too. It's like, I didn't want the memory that I had, which was not a positive one of his last moments, to be remembering him in that way for the rest of my life, like I was. So I had an art session done, and now I have that positive image that he would have wanted to have left.
I like
so you don't want to remember people in their their worst moment, right? I'm now remembering him the way he would have chosen for me to remember him. And it went from a negative thing that kept me up at night to a positive thing that even during the day I can just kind of bring up that image, and it's like he's there again, and it's positive.
So it's
beautiful.
it's replacing a negative
image
and or
the,
tone,
and the body sensations will follow too.
Or emotion that's attached to that image, and replacing it with a hope-filled one.
That you choose. But some people are like, look, I'm not creative. I don't see images well. There's also a way we can just talk through the sessions too. And so some people are like, I don't see images, but I can talk my way through it. Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can it be a word?
It can be a word. Yeah, some people
image?
just do. They don't see images of things or people or places, but they'll see words.
How about sound?
Sure. Or sound. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because just getting back
how
to
your brain works. Once again, there's no right or wrong way. We even say that in the session. There's no right or wrong way to do art. It's just your brain is your brain, and you'll just let your brain show you how it's going to show you. And so there's no guarantee this will work, but your brain is wanting healing, and this may be one way to get it. So let's give it a try.
Do those, and I'm not a licensed therapist, so pardon me for my lack of tech words or language about it, but when you go through a traumatic event or pain or something, does it imprint on your brain in some ways?
Yeah, and your body. Yeah, it's in there. There's a book, Body Keeps a Score. Your body keeps a score.
Yeah.
Your body's keeping score.
We've already,
And so it's all in there. Every experience we've had, even things that we didn't think we experienced. And that's the great thing about art. Sometimes it's like I've had people that had trouble with a coworker, and they're like, why is this such a menace to me? Why do I feel so triggered? And when we're doing art, a bullying situation from middle school that they hadn't thought of in decades will
That makes
surface.
sense. Wow.
Oh my goodness, they hadn't thought of that in decades, but their body had kept that score.
Wow.
And they were then, when they would feel attacked or less than, that was all
That
connected. It
resurfaced.
was all
Wow.
connected, and we were able to, change that through the art session.
Wow. So what would be an ideal candidate for art therapy? Would it
really,
be anyone and everyone, or
it's motivation, I think, more than anything.
Okay.
When people come in, and I've had some, especially since I'm in a Navy town, say, I'm on a short break. I only have 40 minutes, but I'm highly motivated. I've got to get over this. I'm not able to perform as well, and they don't talk very much during the script, but they're highly motivated, and they'll say, "Yep, now I'm doing my job great. I'm in a better place."
how long is a session?
I really prefer the first one to be an hour and a half, so that we have a little time to ease in it and not feel rushed. And there's add-on things I can add to different sessions, and I love giving people the full 110%.
Sure,
But I've worked with whatever people have as far as time. But at least for the first one, I'd like an hour and a half.
Okay.
But after that, a lot of people can do it within like an hour session.
Okay. And what age range? What's the earliest you can start?
I mean, I've heard of art therapists that work with even young children. I have a few times. I have not felt like that was really my niche, because the scripts are really worded more for adults. So if you work with kids a lot with art, you're probably, how to change the scripts, and that probably works a little bit better for you. So definitely teenagers, adults, no problem. Younger people, there are some art therapists that feel comfortable with that because they've figured out how to do it. Is
there an age limit?
I've worked with elderly that were like, this thought has bothered me for decades, and it's just like, well, if you're motivated, let's just see if that can change. And no, it's really I feel like it's motivation, because everybody's brain works a little different, and it's just letting their brain show them the problem and show them how they can see it and feel it differently.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And are you the only therapist in Washington State that's doing this?
Oh, no, I'm sure not.
Oh, okay. You know of others?
If you go to A.R.T, or Accelerated Resolution Therapy, you just search that. You'll find other art therapists. But on the island of Whidbey Island, I think I might be it. But
Okay.
Yeah.
And how accessible and affordable is art therapy compared to others, or is it because it's a fairly new approach?
It can be covered by insurance.
Okay.
Because you can still get a diagnosis, and I personally am self-pay. That just works better. I don't like giving people diagnosis. I think that's part of it. And I see with art that so often it is just 1, 2, or 3 sessions. So it's like, I'd really rather focus my time on what I'm doing, what I'm better at, which is not billing insurance, but just really focus on the craft and art of therapy. And also then if we go over time, it's fine. I'm not trying to fit it into a 50-minute session. But that being said, I can give a super bill, and then people can give it to their insurance company and see if any or part of it will be covered. And oftentimes it is as an out-of-network. Or they use HSA or FSA card, that they're getting for their health benefit. So, but I tell people, would you rather use your insurance and continue with a modality that's not really working well, or just kind of save up and get like an art session done and see if that might, because you're usually paying copays anyway. So let's just see, maybe just an art session. And I do have therapists that will send someone to me and say, hey, I want them back as a client, but just do an art session. We're kind of stuck on this one area, and so I'll do like an art session or two and then send them back to their therapist.
Really
so
it could be connected to other forms of therapy.
Absolutely. We're all trained in different areas, and that's all fine. So I feel like we're starting to see that there's a time and place for all these modalities, and how can we work together on that. And
well, that's just fascinating.
Good stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, though.
I know. It makes it more tangible.
Yeah.
Because it's like, sometimes when we talk about these types of concepts, it looks very foreign. Like it's like, does it really work? Does it really work? Is it something for me?
Yeah.
Is it something that I can does it have to be this like ginormous trauma that I went through?
Right.
Or can it be just like
it could be just
something small,
self-esteem,
but it it feels small in the moment,
Yeah.
but then it actually has imprinted or like made an impact in your life,
Yeah.
and now you have to revisit it.
And it's fun for me. Like when I
Yeah.
pull it up, I actually smile or I laugh because it is kind of silly in a fun way, but it is very empowering. It
Yeah.
is. There's something just very empowering seeing the different genders
Yeah.
on battle boards. Just kind of like, like we got this. And then
good,
the ones on the
yeah.
elephant, those are just, I know. And like I said, it makes me laugh, and I think it's kind of silly, but man, it works.
No,
I would
but-
much rather have that to fall back on and be like, no, I can do this, and we are
yeah.
powerful, and
Yeah.
So it's fun. Like I don't know what other. I mean, everybody obviously comes up with something different.
Yes. Yeah.
Than what I've
Really
come up
do.
with, but
Yeah.
I like mine too.
And so for some people, they feel it more in their body. Other people, their images are stronger. It
Yeah.
really doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
just however you're wired.
Does it work more with men versus women?
I really don't see any pattern to this
Any
at
pattern?
all. I'm
Okay.
always pleasantly surprised. And some people, like I said, I don't see images or I don't feel feelings. Some people, when I'm doing art, they don't feel anything in their body the whole time. And I'm like, I wonder if that worked.
Yeah.
And they'll say, yeah, it worked. I'm like,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
All
You know,
right.
there's
Yeah.
really, we always say there's no right or wrong way.
Yeah.
And also, like I said, there's not a lot of talk involved, so I don't always even know,
Yeah.
what's going on here. We give opportunities throughout the session. If you care to share, do you care to
Yeah.
share?
Yeah.
But
Do you take like a pulse at the end, some sort of survey?
we
or
do. It's
something?
called an artometer. So we take kind of a rating at the beginning and the end to say your current distress level with this anger or whatever it is that you're being treated for. Where are you on the artometer? And then you move it to that point, and at the end of the session, oftentimes we'll say, okay, now where do you think you are in the level of distress now? And almost always it's a much better number than what they started with. But then, like I said, over time, they could see even more results or with more sessions. Or, but I love the fact that you brought faith and spirituality into it, as well as creativity. It's like whoever the person is what they bring into the session. And they don't have to be anything other than who they are. And that's the beauty of it. And that's why every session is kind of a new adventure, because I get to see where are their values or interests or what's special to them. And sometimes I don't even know, but they know. And they're like, wow, that touched me. That was real. That's me.
Wow. Yeah. And it's very healing.
Yeah.
To meet people where they're at.
Yeah, very much
Yeah.
so.
Very, very cool. Well, thank you for this fascinating, I feel like we just pretty much scratched the surface, right? Because there's still more information that's coming out about art, probably, because
It was created in 2008.
Yeah.
I think it's the
So-
best kept secret out there.
Yeah.
There's some
Yeah.
TED Talks that Lainey has done
Yeah.
of a postal worker even that had a phobia.
Wow.
She was bit by a dog. She did one art session and then returned to work. She thought she would not be able to ever return to work.
Wow. Wow.
So there's some resources online. Too Good to Be True is the book Lainey wrote. There's another book, Compassion, written by a therapist named Colleen. So you can find it, but you have to search for it a bit. I do feel like it's a best kept secret out there
Yeah,
in
and
therapy
I'm
land.
sure
We're
if-
trying to spread the word.
Yes. And I'm sure if our listeners are more curious, you're open to answering their questions.
Yeah.
And going to your-
IslandSoundCounseling.com. You'll
Yes.
see my rates and more about me and everything.
Awesome. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll definitely list your website and get
you.
people connected to you if they have any more questions. So okay, folks, ART does not stand for the painting, sculpting kind of art therapy, but accelerated resolution therapy. And now you just heard more about it from Faith and Ginger, who has experienced it. So thank you so much for
Yeah,
your time,
most
ladies.
welcome.
It's
Yes. Thank you.
fascinating.
Yeah, opportunity. Thank you.
I'm so grateful for just different creative ways of healing our bodies and our minds and how that contributes to the greater good of our
Yes,
community,
that's
right?
right.
We always want the best for people in our lives and people we touch, especially here in our clinic. And I think having this kind of resource under our belt might be something maybe some of our patients would want to take advantage of, right?
think so.
Because it could be done in their home, it could be done remotely, and just life gets in the way sometimes to make to go to
Yeah.
therapy sometimes feels daunting in
Yeah.
itself. So this might be something you want to explore. And now that we are have this connection with Faith, I'm sure she'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you
Yeah,
for your
thank you.
time.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem. We've enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right, listeners, thank you so much. Please send us your questions. We'll be listing all of Faith's resources that she mentioned on this podcast, as well as her own website. Please reach out if you have any more questions. And till next time, be well. For more information about 3W, please visit our website at 3wmedical.org. That's the number 3, the letter W, medical.org. From there, you can learn more information about the services we provide, book an appointment, or make a donation if you'd like to support our mission. You can also call our office at 206-588-0311. That's 206-588-0311. If you like this episode, please share it with others and consider subscribing on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, stay healthy and be well.